Ken Clarke does view all rape as serious.
Well, he's gone some way to making rectitude for the mistakes and the comments that he's made, but I don't think that's really the issue. The issue is that to make a distinction, for the Justice Secretary to seek to make a distinction between different kinds of rape is very unhelpful. There's still a long way to go until women feel confident reporting rape and until we see the prosecutions that we need to see in order.
Labour's £80 million breakfast gamble, political masterstroke or empty promise. Right, before we dive into this political feast, if you're not already subscribed to UK Connors, what exactly are you waiting for? We're serving up the most digestible takes on British politics daily, so smash that subscribe button and let's get into today's rather interesting development from Labour's camp. Now then, let's talk about breakfast, shall we? But not just any breakfast. We're talking about Bridget Phillipson's rather ambitious £80 million breakfast club expansion that's supposedly going to transform 500,000 children's mornings and save working parents up to £450 annually. Convenient timing, wouldn't you say, announcing this just as Labour delegates prepare to descend upon Liverpool for their annual conference? Almost as if someone's been reading the political playbook on how to generate positive headlines before your party faithful gather for their yearly love-in. Here's what Phillipson's promising. Around 2,000 primary schools across England joining this breakfast club program. 500,000 children getting their morning meal sorted. Parents saving hundreds on childcare. Sounds absolutely brilliant on paper, doesn't it? The Education Secretary's wrapped it all up in that familiar Labour rhetoric about historic change and breaking down barriers to opportunity. Phrases we've heard so many times they are practically tattooed on every Labour press release. But hold on a moment. Let's examine what's actually happening here beneath the glossy political packaging. This isn't exactly revolutionary territory we're treading. The government's already been trialling these breakfast clubs since Easter 2024 with 180,000 pupils across 750 primary schools. So we're not talking about some groundbreaking new concept. We're talking about scaling up something that's already been tested. The question becomes, how well has that initial trial actually performed? Here's where things get rather interesting, and frankly, where Phillipson's announcement starts showing its political teeth. Labour's manifesto promise was clear. Free breakfast clubs in every primary school. Not most schools, not some schools, every school. Yet here we are with 2,000 schools joining the program. How many primary schools exist in England? Approximately 16,000. So we're looking at roughly 1 in 8 schools being covered by this expansion. Mathematics isn't exactly Labour's strong suit, apparently, when it comes to delivering on those sweeping manifesto commitments. The timing of this announcement is absolutely exquisite political theatre. Liverpool conference looming, delegates expecting red meat policy announcements, and suddenly we've got Phillipson serving up this breakfast bonanza. It's almost choreographed to perfection. Announce a popular policy that sounds substantial, generate positive headlines, keep the activists happy, and deflect from some rather uncomfortable questions about Labour's performance in the early months of government. Let's talk numbers for a moment, because they are rather revealing. £80 million sounds impressive, doesn't it? But when you break that down across 2,000 schools, we're looking at £40,000 per school annually. Now, for those unfamiliar with school budgets, that might sound generous. But consider what's actually required: additional staff, food costs, facility usage, administrative overhead, insurance implications. Suddenly, that £40,000 per school starts looking rather modest when you factor in the reality of delivering breakfast to hundreds of children daily. Paul Whiteman from the National Association of Head Teachers has raised precisely the concerns any sensible person would expect: funding adequacy, staffing challenges, and space constraints within school buildings. These aren't minor operational hiccups we're discussing. These are fundamental structural challenges that could determine whether this policy succeeds or becomes another well-intentioned government program that schools struggle to implement effectively. The political calculation here is rather transparent, isn't it? Labour's attempting to demonstrate they're the party of working families while simultaneously positioning themselves as fiscally responsible by expanding an existing program rather than launching something entirely new. It's politically clever, targeting exactly the demographic that swung the 2024 election: working parents struggling with childcare costs and work-life balance pressures. But let's examine the broader context of this announcement. Labour's been in power for several months now, and the honeymoon period is rapidly approaching its expiration date. Economic pressures remain substantial, public services are stretched, and voters are beginning to expect tangible improvements to their daily lives. Announcing policies that directly impact family budgets and children's welfare is textbook political positioning for a government needing to demonstrate immediate relevance to ordinary people's concerns. The childcare angle is particularly astute political positioning. £450 annual savings per family might not revolutionize household budgets, but it's precisely the kind of practical assistance that working parents notice and appreciate. It's the sort of policy that generates positive conversations at school gates and family gatherings, exactly the kind of organic political advocacy that parties prize above expensive advertising campaigns. However, there's a rather significant elephant in this particular political room. The initial trial covered 180,000 pupils, and now we're expanding to cover an additional 500,000. That's nearly tripling the program scope. Anyone with basic understanding of public service delivery knows that scaling programs isn't simply about multiplying budgets and hoping for proportional success. Implementation challenges multiply exponentially, not arithmetically. The staffing implications alone should give any serious observer pause. Schools are already struggling with recruitment and retention across teaching and support staff positions. Now we're expecting them to recruit additional personnel for breakfast club supervision, food preparation, and administrative coordination. Where exactly are these staff members coming from? What training will they receive? How will schools manage these additional employment responsibilities alongside their existing pressures? Space considerations present another fascinating challenge that Phillipson's announcement conveniently glosses over. Many primary schools, particularly in urban areas, are already operating at capacity regarding physical space. Dining halls, classrooms, and common areas are typically scheduled to maximum efficiency throughout the school day. Adding breakfast service means rearranging entire facility usage patterns, potentially impacting cleaning schedules, food service logistics, and general building management. The political messaging around this expansion is expertly crafted to appeal to multiple constituencies simultaneously. Working parents hear about childcare cost savings. Child welfare advocates hear about ensuring children receive proper nutrition before learning begins. Education professionals hear about additional resources flowing into schools. Economic commentators hear about supporting workforce participation by reducing family logistical barriers. It's almost impressively comprehensive in its political appeal. Yet beneath this carefully constructed political narrative lies a more complex reality about education funding and priorities. While £80 million for breakfast clubs generates positive headlines, schools continue facing budget pressures across core educational functions. Teachers remain concerned about classroom resources, building maintenance backlog persists, and special educational needs provision remains inadequate across many areas. The question becomes whether this breakfast club expansion represents the most effective use of additional education investment. The geographical distribution of these 2,000 participating schools will prove rather telling about Labour's political calculations. Will they prioritize areas with highest need, or will political considerations influence selection criteria? Marginal constituencies that could determine Labour's future electoral success might find themselves particularly well represented among breakfast club locations. Such calculations wouldn't exactly be unprecedented in British political history. Implementation timelines present another interesting aspect that Phillipson's announcement leaves rather vague. Rolling out to 2,000 schools isn't something that happens overnight, particularly given the staffing and logistical challenges we've discussed. The practical reality suggests this expansion will occur gradually over months, possibly extending into the next school year. That timeline conveniently allows Labour to generate ongoing positive press coverage as individual schools join the program, creating multiple news cycles from a single policy announcement. The broader political context makes this breakfast club expansion particularly intriguing. Labour's attempting to establish governing credibility while maintaining opposition party sensibilities about supporting working families against systemic challenges. It's a delicate balance between demonstrating competent administration and maintaining that insurgent energy that helped secure their electoral victory. International comparisons provide useful perspective on this policy direction. Many developed nations provide universal school meal programs, often including breakfast provision. Finland, Sweden, and several other European countries treat school nutrition as fundamental infrastructure rather than targeted intervention. Labour's approach represents a rather British compromise, expanding provision significantly while maintaining selectivity and targeting rather than embracing truly universal coverage. The economic argument supporting this expansion extends beyond immediate childcare cost savings for families. Well-nourished children demonstrate better concentration, improved academic performance, and reduced behavioral challenges in classroom settings. These outcomes translate into broader economic benefits through improved educational attainment and reduced healthcare costs over time. Whether £80 million represents optimal investment toward these outcomes remains debatable, but the underlying economic logic appears sound. Political opposition responses will prove illuminating regarding broader party positioning on social policy and government spending. Conservative critics will likely emphasize fiscal concerns and question program effectiveness, while potentially struggling to oppose policies that clearly benefit working families. Liberal Democrats might support the principle while advocating for more ambitious universal provision. These response patterns will reveal much about contemporary British political alignment on state intervention and family support. This announcement represents classic New Labour political positioning, pragmatic policy intervention that demonstrates governmental competence while appealing to key electoral constituencies. It avoids ideological extremes while providing tangible benefits to targeted groups. Whether such approaches prove sufficient for contemporary political challenges remains to be seen, but the Breakfast Club expansion certainly fits established Labour political templates. The measurement metrics for this program's success will prove crucial for its long-term political sustainability. Simple participation numbers won't suffice. Labour will need demonstrable evidence of improved educational outcomes, family economic benefits, and broader social impact to justify continued investment and potential further expansion. These evidence requirements create accountability pressures that could influence program implementation and political messaging strategies. So there we have it, Labour's £80 million breakfast gamble disguised as compassionate family policy. Will it deliver the promised benefits to 500,000 children and their families? Can 2,000 schools successfully implement these programs despite staffing and space challenges? And most importantly for Labour's political fortunes, will working parents credit the government with meaningful support for their daily struggles? The answers will likely determine whether this represents genuine policy success or another example of political promise exceeding delivery capability. Time will tell whether Bridget Phillipson's Breakfast Club expansion proves to be the historic change she's promised or simply another well-intentioned policy that sounds better in press releases and in practice. Either way, it certainly provided Labour with exactly the kind of positive headlines they needed heading into conference season. That's the political feast served for today. If this analysis has given you something to chew on, make sure you're subscribed for more incisive takes on British politics, because there's always another policy announcement, political miscalculation, or governmental drama just around the corner, and we'll be here to break it all down for you.